A'udzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. As-salatu was-salamu ala Muhammadin wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbi zidni ilman. So, assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome back to our daily reflection of a verse from the Quran. And today, inshallah, we will be talking about verse 11 from Sura Hujaraat, so 49:11, where Allah says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Ya ayyuhal lazina amanu. So again, it is a verse which is addressed to the believers, and it says, La yasghar qawmin min qawmin, means, O believers, O you who believe, let no group make fun of another. And it goes on to say, for they may be better than them. So this is a very powerful verse, and something that all of us, it would benefit to reflect on. So talking about first of all, the word sakhara. Sakhara means it is to mock someone, to say something which is degrading and putting another human being down. So it could be verbal or non-verbal, right? So a subtle indication like a rolling of the eyes, making a face. It could even be imitating them or mimicking them. The idea is that it can be done in many ways. And basically the intention or the aim is to ridicule someone, to make others laugh at this person, or you mock that person, right? Now, of course, this is very problematic because we need to remember that Allah loves all his creatures. And when we are mean to others, Allah is not happy with us. So Imam Sajjad alayhi salam says that from among the sins that bring down the wrath of Allah are oppression done by one who is aware, trampling on the rights of others, and mocking and ridiculing others. So, in other words, this is a very serious matter. The thing is that sometimes, it is so common that we don't pay any attention to it. It becomes just part of how we speak and how we are in groups. A lot of mocking and putting other people down, groups of people or individuals, is done in groups. And because we all want to belong, it is so easy to get carried away. When this is happening, we may not even intend to do it in the beginning, but we somehow get carried along. And sometimes it becomes more problematic because if we try to speak up, or if somebody dares to say anything, the group who is mocking might call us humorless or boring, or you don't get the joke, or chill out, don't take it so seriously, it's only a joke. And as we know, in this day and age, we have become much more aware of how our actions impact each other. So small, even jokes can be microaggressions against other people, and they can do a lot of damage to them, of course, and to ourselves, as this verse says, right? And because if you look at it, if you just remove the property of humor, of making a joke of it, it's simply a nasty comment, right? A comment or a signal, a non-verbal signal. And humor, sometimes is fun. I mean, I love humor myself, but when it appears to give a gloss of moral invisibility to statements made in jest, which are really not kind, then we really need to be more hesitant and reflect about what we are doing and why we are participating in such a thing. The second part of the verse is very important itself, right? It says, and by the way, this is only one segment of the verse. I have not shared the entire verse because this is what we're focusing on today. So this part of the verse says, for they may be better than them. In other words, the people that you may be mocking may actually be better in the sight of Allah than you. Because when we mock, obviously we're looking at the apparent, how somebody looks, how somebody talks, how somebody behaves. And those are very surface level things. And we know with Allah, they really don't matter. It doesn't matter how another human being looks or speaks. The Quran tells us that what matters in the sight of Allah is God consciousness, is how, what kind of human beings we are. So it begs the question, why do we do it? Why is it so easy to look down upon people and mock another human being? And of course, psychologists and experts give many reasons why this can happen. It's usually to get away from something that we don't like or acknowledge within ourselves. And sometimes, we may be aware at some level, because here's the thing, we don't really recognize things in other people unless they are present in ourselves and we kind of reject them in ourselves, right? So it's usually because of inadequacy that we see in ourselves. Sometimes we want to deflect attention from ourselves, and therefore it's so much easier to talk about other people. Generally, people who feel good about themselves, who are well adjusted, happy, tend not to mock and ridicule others. It is a sign of internal unhappiness when we don't feel good about ourselves. Is that when we focus on others and on putting other people down, because when we feel good, we do good, right? And another way to look at it is hurt people hurt people. So when we have this tendency, the focus might be to heal ourselves rather than to look down on other people. Sometimes it's a group thing, right? So we are part of a group and we get carried away, and we all want to belong. That the need to belong to groups and to be included is a very human tendency. And sometimes we do it just because it's so much easier, right, to belong. And two things, right? One is that the people who we're looking down on also want to belong. And by mocking them, by ridiculing them, by putting them down, we are actually depriving them of this, their own fulfillment of their need. And also, we will not really belong to a group which makes fun of other people, because when we are not around, very likely that mocking is likely to turn to us, right? There's a lovely quote from I forget the name, but it'll come to me in a second. I am leaving, but I leave my reputation behind, right? So people who look down on others are likely to do the same to us. So again, to summarize, why is mocking problematic? First away, it turns away from the real issue, right? Generally, the real issue is that we are not feeling good about ourselves. We may not be feeling confident. We want to belong. We have low self-esteem. And, rather than turning inside and healing that, it's so much easier to look at others and put others down. Okay. The Hermann Hesse, the German Swiss poet, he said, if you hate a person, you hate something in them that is part of yourself. What isn't a part of ourselves doesn't disturb us. Really wise words, huh? The second problem is that the verse itself alludes to the fact that the person being mocked may be better than the one doing the mocking. Because remember that people who are good human beings, who are sincere believers, who are really truly connected to God, will not usually make a show of their piety, of them doing good. And so they tend to be low-key people. And low-key people are easy to pick on, right? And we generally pick on someone who is lower than our social status, who is somehow not part of the group. And we have no idea how or what the stance of this person is in sight of Allah. So again, it becomes quite problematic. The third problem is that this pseudo good feeling and morale boost that we may experience momentarily from making fun of someone else is really short-lived. And if we are self-reflective, if we are self-aware, it is very likely to be followed by distress, dis-ease of the soul, right? Because our soul is hardwired to do the right thing. And when we do something which is not pleasing to Allah, it will give us signals, which makes it very uncomfortable and unpleasant. And sometimes, when we don't pay attention to that, instead of paying attention to that, we turn our attention outside and do more of the same. The fourth thing is that scholars have compared mocking others to putting a knife through their soul and murdering their morale and confidence. So, obviously, we know that doing that to a body would be extremely serious. And Islam takes such assaults on a believer's reputation, on other human beings' souls, also as problematic. And now science confirms that looking down on somebody else, having contempt for them, is a really easy way to destroy a personal relationships, because we send vibes that turn people away from us. No one wants to be connected to someone who is looking at them as something defective or something down, right? So contempt is known as one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, right, in relationship science, which means that it's going to destroy your relationship if it is present, ongoing for it. And being on the receiving end of contempt has been shown in lots of studies to be very destructive for our well-being. Women who live with contempt, for example, are more likely to be sick, more likely to get colds. So it destroys our immunity. That is how serious it is. So when we are tempted to engage in this, we really need to be reflective on the impact that none of us would knowingly hurt somebody like that, but we need to recognize that this is what it does do, in fact. So how, the idea is, how can we get better? How can we stop this, right? And the first, obviously, always starts with making an intention. We can use this verse to remind ourselves of the seriousness of mocking others. And once we're aware, we're aware. You cannot take that awareness away. So if you have heard this, if you have read this, if you have watched this, then you know that mocking somebody else has a destructive impact on them. And it is not simply a joke, and that our words have real power to hurt someone, even our body language, right? It doesn't only have to be words. So when it is happening in a gathering that we are there, there are levels of what we can do. If we have the courage, of course, the best thing is to speak up and to stop this from happening. We can choose to defend somebody. We can deflect attention, turn the conversation away to another subject. We can leave the gathering. Whatever is possible for us to do at the moment. At the very least, let us not at least participate and make it worse. We can actually mentally and emotionally create a barrier against, around us when something like this is happening. So to make an intention that we are not participating in it. Of course, it has become so easy now to mock people and to ridicule people in the virtual world, because many of us tend to say things in text that we would not have the guts to in person. And of course, it has a very negative effect. You ask anyone, no matter how large their following is, right? They may get 100 positive messages, but that one negative message tends to stay with us. So we need to look, even whether it is social media, whether it is in print, we need to look and be mindful of the impact that our words are having on the person that they are being directed to, that our body language has on the person that it is being directed to. Is it negative, spiteful, capable of hurting someone? And then let's make an intention not to say anything in text or comment that we would not have the courage to say to anyone on their face. So what would this verse look like in action? If we were all living this verse, people would feel emotionally and psychologically safe in our present. They would not feel judged or attacked. our conversations would be free of negative and hurtful and mocking comments towards others. And people would gather around us. When people feel safe, when they feel valued, when they feel validated, of course they're going to be attracted to us. And it would impact our relationships in a really positive way. So I'd like to end again with a dua from from the duas from the days of the week from Imam Sajjad, and this is the supplication. I'm just going to read parts of it. It's a supplication for Monday, and he says, "O Allah, I ask you the complaints of your servants against me. If there is a male or female servant from amongst your servants who has against me a complaint because I have wronged him in respect to himself, his reputation, evil words I have spoken about him in his absence, whether he is absent or present, alive or dead, such that my hand has fallen short and my capacity has been too narrow to make restitution to him or to annul my obligation to him. I ask you to make the one I have wronged satisfied with me in the manner that you will, and give me mercy from yourself." So what we are asking in this dua is that I have done this in the past. So whoever I have done it to, help them to forgive me, to make up this obligation that I have, to make restitution to them. And obviously that's the first step. And secondly, to have mercy from him, the all merciful. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.